everybody. This is Marco Amaya, Ethan Foster, and Travis Brown. And this is our second show on the Patriot Torch, so welcome back. We're going to be talking about some of the latest news locally, also into other politics, about the Second Amendment and much more. So the first thing I wanted to talk about is a recent story that happened, because it's very important that this shooting happened recently at UNC. And I know Travis said that he had an experience of being nearby, and so we wanted to get some first glimpse at like what he saw.
Yeah, so I was eating at Mikado's, and it's like a little restaurant across the street, and right around when the shooting was happening, we were seeing like 50, 60 cop cars like just constantly
flying by.
Yeah. And then we got a text from some people like, hey, there was a shooting at UNCC, and I was like, no way. But yeah, we were like not half a mile from there.
That's crazy. Yeah. That's crazy. And that's something that's been happening. It's happened a lot now in different parts of the country. And it's a big problem because there's a whole group of people on the left saying that we shouldn't have anything to protect ourselves with. But yet we're getting more and more of these events happening even closer to us at home.
Yeah.
We can't be being naive and think that, oh, this can never happen at our house or in our neighborhood, because it's gonna it's happening in Charlotte. So we need to start taking action. We can't be idiots just sucking on our thumbs here. And so this brings the topic of gun-free zones, right? Because schools there's a tendency for schools to be gun-free zones. And I think this is a big danger to our society, because obviously for a criminal that wants to kill someone, okay, they feel like it's a lot easier to kill people that can't defend themselves, and that's just pure logic. So what are we going to do about all these gun-free zones? Because to me, I feel like it's unconstitutional that there's so many places I go to I'm not supposed to bring a gun. What do you think?
Well, schools are one of the hard places that there's just no good legal way around it. Certain malls don't allow you to carry, but there are certain ways that you can kind of, I don't want to say you can get around it, but some malls don't block you from doing it. A lot of movie theaters don't let you carry. But, there's organizations that you can join. I know, like, for schools, there's, like, the Students for Concealed Carry. They're kind of pushing towards it, but it's just one of those things that's a hard sell. A few years back, North Carolina switched the law to where you could carry a gun in your car if you had a permit. So you can have the gun in your car. You can go get it if you need it.
You had to have a CC though, or that was just open
carry? You have a
carry?
permit.
Okay.
You cannot open carry. If you bring a gun onto school campus and they find you have it and you don't have a permit, you're going to jail.
Like hot water.
Yeah, you're going to jail. So it's one of those battles. It's a hard sell too, because it's a very emotional argument when you deal with these school shootings. And there's not a good way to get around all the emotion, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's something that we have to overcome over time, but the best thing we can do is to talk about it, because the more people are afraid to talk about it, the less the problem is going to be solved. And so, of course, if there's a bunch of sitting ducks at schools not being able to defend themselves, I think it's a big problem, because the Democrats are pushing it even more into thinking that it's good to get rid of it, but meanwhile the criminals are still bringing the guns in anyway. So that's a big problem, and I do believe that, in my opinion, we should be able to have guns in the hands of, obviously legally, for people that are allowed to have it, but it's something that prevents crimes from happening. It stops people from committing massive crimes if there's someone that's good that has a gun. And so this is something that it concerns me, that there are a lot of gun-free zones throughout the country. And so, and all of us, I'm a gun owner, you're a gun owner, I'm sure you are. So, the more that people are part of this movement, the more it's better for the country, it's better for our society. We don't want to turn into, Nazi Germany or some place where you can't even defend yourself. But moving to another subject here, kind of reminds me of how socialism is taking over the Venezuela. And obviously, in socialist countries, the government takes control of everything. And honestly, that's what would happen if we let socialism grow here. We're also going to lose our guns. We're also going to lose a lot of rights. So a big question that's I've been boiling up in my mind is, what are we going to do? What should we do about Venezuela? It's collapsing. People are starving to death. But it's a really powerful question to ask. Should we get involved? Should we invade Venezuela, or should we stay out of it? What do you think, Ethan?
I think we need to get involved. I wouldn't say invade, but I was wondering this past week why no one's talking about it. No one's been talking about it, and this has been going on for a while. And they lost firearms rights in 2012, and no one talked about it. I didn't even hear about this until a few months ago. And people are getting run over with tanks down there, civilians. They can't defend themselves. Nobody has any idea when their next meal is going to be. People have to pillage through trash cans to eat. And I know we're trying to figure out if we should interfere because Russia's interfering, and it puts us in a tough spot. I don't like the United States getting involved in foreign countries. I know we've had this discussion before. I don't like the idea of giving out foreign aid, like in a monetary aspect, but it's more concerning to me that this is what socialism is. This is the byproduct of socialism, and we have multiple socialists running for president in our own country, and that's like the main focus to me is if we can't look at what the end result is down south in South America.
Yeah. It's happening right out, like basically outside our door. It's just that people don't actually see it physically themselves, so it doesn't hit home to them. Like they think it's like some idea that's not related to the socialism that we have here because they call it democratic socialism here. That's such a misnomer. The whole point of the socialism for the government to take over, and then that's how you actually lose democracies when you don't have the power. And so with Venezuela, it's a tough question because a part of me is like, yeah, we need to get involved. Because, if Russia and all these other, China or other countries get involved and they have their own systems that they implant into the country, I mean, that can be something that becomes a threat later on, too, for our country. But there's also the argument that we don't want to get involved in foreign problems because then we have to sacrifice our own resources, our own people. But, is that something that, we should do? What do you think, Travis?
Probably not yet. And there's been some videos, so I do try to, when things are happening, I do try to go and watch like the raw edit. So like it's pretty brutal watching the dude in the armored vehicle run over through the crowd.
Yeah,
and
that was
stuff.
crazy.
It's not good. And I did see where one of the incidents there was a bridge, and some of the military is actually starting to turn against the guy, like they're switching sides, so to speak. So I think at least for the time being, the move might be to sit and watch.
Mm-hmm.
They have an interim president down there.
Yeah, they do, but it's still he's not got any real, let's say, real power. Right. But it's something that if we're gonna jump in, I don't think now's the time.
Yeah.
Maybe wait a couple weeks,
sit it out,
and then see, because I think some people starting to defect will probably lead to more people starting to defect.
That's a really good sign. Because I guess it was a smart move on Trump's end to support the new president, Guaido, I think.
He recognized him.
Yeah. He recognized him, and that's a good sign. Also probably raises the morale for the people in Venezuela that they have some kind of external recognition or support, even if it's mental. It's powerful because they need something because they have nothing there. And so if the military for Maduro starts to defect and go against him, I mean, it actually would end pretty quickly if that happened.
It'd be game over. The military needs to switch sides, ultimately. I mean, the people are eating dogs. There's no food. If I'm not mistaken, it's the richest country in the world with oil, and they have nothing. The economy's been absolutely destroyed. Yeah,
it's totally manipulated because of the government, just not allowing the free market to exist. And so Maduro, I'm sure that that it's not going to last too much longer, because if anyone that has any sense of awareness knows that if your own family is dying on the street, why would you continue to support a regime that is literally killing your own family? I mean, it's affecting the Maduro's military, I'm sure. So that's a big topic. And then now switching to another subject that's really important. Is there something you wanted to bring up?
Yeah, I was thinking more along the lines of just looking at the election next year. When you look at Maduro, who's running Venezuela into the ground, it actually started with, was it Chavez? Chavez was the one that originally brought socialism into Venezuela. I lump Maduro, Chavez, Stalin, and Bernie Sanders all into the same group. They're all radical socialists. And in the end, I think if we saw multiple back-to-back Bernie Sanders presidents, we'd end up in a communist country.
Yeah.
You wouldn't even see. And see, the scary thing about that I see with Bernie is not so much like his ideas are bad, let's say, but the deal with like him, he doesn't apply the same standard to himself that he wants to apply to others. So he's like, tax the rich, but he's not out. He's like, well, I wrote a book. I did something big. I deserve this money. So he's playing the capitalist game himself, while saying that we need to do a completely different system. And it doesn't. I wish he was at least honest enough to say, hey, I should pay more. I mean, the IRS isn't going to send you money back if you overpay. Like, why doesn't he set the standard for himself to get to a tax level that he thinks that someone in his income bracket should make?
I fear relying on the government for everything. The government's not a cure-all, and that's what I think the democratic socialists want. I mean, that's how you give up all of the power and all of the rights that we have when we have to turn to the government for everything.
Yeah, what's the point of making yourself feel weak and then letting some foreign, something that's not even, that you don't even know, people you don't even know, why would you let them handle your life? I don't understand that mentality that let's just let some guy that we see on TV, let him run our lives and create universal programs and take money from everyone. It's like that's just a one-way ticket to hell, because if we lose control of something that we should handle ourselves, eventually that source, that power gets accumulated into the federal government, into the dictatorships, and literally creates a dictatorship. But whereas like our mentality here, as free market patriot Americans, is more power to the people. That's what it really is all about. I mean, all this Antifa trying to act like they're fighting fascism, but they're not actually fighting to keep the power to the people.
I think they are the fascists.
They're totally the fascists.
Antifa's the fascist.
They're totally. There's a guy that recently that was just walking on the street, and just because they didn't like him, because of his conservative views, they started attacking him, but they got their ass whooped.
Yeah, to me, Antifa's, they're domestic terrorists. I mean, without a doubt. And then even going back to my overall consensus of Bernie Sanders, my favorite saying is, I don't think the government knows how to spend my money better than I do. So why would I vote for someone that's going to take more of the money that I work for? Like, I don't like the idea of just the government cramming all of this on us from the top down, because overall control is never worked out.
Yeah, because then you're relying on the ability for those few people to handle everyone's finances, basically. It's like, that's crazy. What if that person that is handling all my money is a freaking lunatic?
Well, what they're doing also is, you see with Bernie and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, they point at the Nordic countries, and they're like, oh, our version of socialism isn't Venezuela. They're like, look over here. Look over here in the Nordic states. Like, this is what we're talking about. And it's like, no, all socialism leads to what is happening in Venezuela right now.
Oh yeah. The Denmark is so awesome. You get to pay more than 50% of your taxes from your income to the government. That sounds really good. Yeah, it's that doesn't sound good at all. It's like my money.
If you make the equivalent of $60,000 there, you lose like half your income to taxes. I would have no incentive to work.
No.
It's the same thing with they proposed a universal basic income. If you knew that you could make even $18,000 a year off the government, like, you'd have no incentive to work hard.
What is that? The Andrew Yang? Is that the guy running? Mm-hmm. I listened to that. The interesting thing about him is the math doesn't. Well, usually these programs, the math doesn't add up. So I think I did the math of what if everybody in the country were to take the $1,000 a month. It's something like $4 trillion.
Yes,
a year.
I actually did the math too.
So
it was crazy.
it's an astronomical amount of money. But he goes in, and when he starts breaking down the numbers, And he's like, we'll get a few billion here, we'll get a few billion there. I'm like, dude, that's a trillion. You're not even creeping close to $1 trillion. And I get you're going to get more money from the sales tax and all that stuff, but look, I would like an extra 12 grand a year. I'm not, but we've got. Let's say that you can figure out a way to do it in the budget, right? And that it would break even. But we got $20 trillion in debt. Like, we have a completely different set of issues that I think we need to get to before we can even start looking at something like the UBI.
I love how the leftists, they just go along with it. They're like, oh, free money. They don't even do the math. They're just like, I'm down for it. I don't care how you get the money.
What was Elizabeth Warren? She was tanking in the polls, so now she has this. I'm going to propose a bill to get rid of student loan debt, so all the college students
it's
vote
just
for me.
hardcore pandering. And like
exactly.
it's a total kick in the nuts to somebody like me who paid his own way through college because
Yeah.
I went out of school with no debt, and now now I'm a taxpayer. I'm working full time, all that stuff, and so I'm going to be paying for the guy that got a gender studies degree or whatever that he can't get a job. I'm having to take that on as a tax burden now because somebody else voted for it. It's completely unfair to me and any other taxpayer that I guess doesn't have a kid going through college.
Exactly, and plus there's so many insane programs in college now. It's like you're going to end up paying for someone to learn about a sex change.
Sure.
You know, it's just like insane because one thing, and that's another a really controversial subject. Actually,
I didn't know we were going there today.
Yeah,
we might as well dive in. I made the conversation.
It went there.
It's a good segue.
It's a good segue because transgenderism. Okay,
Oh God.
it's a really hot topic. It gets people banned. For some reason, the social media cartels nowadays, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter. They absolutely do not want you to talk about this subject.
Instagram's the worst.
Instagram, they will delete your comments if you talk about transgenders or criticize them, and it's
drain
like
your followers.
they drain your followers. Personal experiences with this type of stuff, with forcing us to delete posts if we do this. I mean, that's going to make me want to talk about it more because I'm not going to let someone tell me what I can and can't talk about, and that's part of the reason why this show exists, the Patriot Torch. Because I want to make sure we put attention on these hot topics. First of all, something that's really important is, look, people, that you can literally, cut your genitals off, but you're not going to change the gender of your body. You're just not. You're just artificially destroying your body. And I'm not against transgenders. Like, you can do it. You have the freedom to do it. But like Travis was saying, well, I'm not going to pay for your sex change. Some of these states, and I think it's like Chicago or something, they want to get people to actually pay for the sexual surgeries to get them their genders changed. And it's like, if you want to do it to yourself, pay for it for yourself. But to start to turn this into a social problem that everyone has to pay for, and it's another, you want to change your gender, and like as if that's possible. That's not possible, as you were saying about the chromosomes.
Yeah, I'll take a long side before I dive into this, because I've had comments taken off of every social media platform that I've been on, and I treat everyone with dignity and respect, but my statement was, like, a sex change is scientifically impossible. Like, you can have any kind of surgery you want, you can take whatever kind of hormones you want, but you're born a male or a female, an XX or XY. Like, I'll call you whatever you want. You want to change your name to Caitlyn, like the
Jenner?
Whatever, yeah. And you want to change your name, I'll call you whatever you want. But
Right.
if you're born a man, I'm going to call you sir and he, and I don't want to confuse my children. I don't want to confuse the rest of society. And it's not fair that they stand up on a table and just shout at the top of their lungs.
Yeah, and the thing is that with the transgender movement, it's not that all transgenders are bad or anything. It's just that there's part of the transgender movement is kind of going insane now, because now they have men running for women sports and
totally disagree.
and competing.
The weightlifter. You guys seen the weightlifter?
Yeah, so are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Are you kidding me? Anyone took this seriously?
Well, no.
Anybody?
So I'm waiting for somebody to actually be the troll. So like somebody to go in and do that.
I'm
waiting for it. I'm waiting for it because it's just because the left is like kind of gotten so stuck in the ideology that they can't say when somebody's obviously trolling them. If somebody just sticks with it long enough, they can't say anything. Like, I mean, I'm just waiting for the day because I'm gonna die laughing for somebody to
exactly. Like, what do you mean? Like,
well, let's say this weightlifter comes out a month from now and be like, "Yeah, I'm not trans. I just did it to completely troll everybody
For the medal.
Like,
I just did it for the medal.
Yeah.
because like there's some people that and I wonder if some of them are just people that have like. I know I'm not going to go win any awards for sports, so like I wonder if it's somebody like that has maybe failed in high school sports or something like that has like gone down a bad path. Maybe let's say they're like, how can I get some glory in sports? And since it's 2019 and you can be whatever you want to be, they're like, I'm going to go here and I'm going to do that. And
I think it's a deeper psychological stigma than that. I mean, I'd like to think it was that easy, but I think these people really think they're something they're not.
And that may be true, but sometimes it's like, I go like, is this something that they're doing?
well,
like,
it's a slippery slope because
It
what
is.
you're saying is, I totally know what you both are saying. The one thing is it's a slippery slope because then anybody can pretend to be a man when they're a woman, or they can pretend to be a woman and they're actually a man. But the left is so obsessed about being politically correct that they're not going to criticize you if you literally woke up today and pretended you decided you wanted to act like you're an opposite gender. They're not going to question you because then they're going to be labeled as a homophobe or transphobe.
That's the one.
So
I
then
think.
people are going to go into the bathrooms when they're not the right gender, and that's
Yeah.
another whole controversial
Well,
topic.
it's along the same lines of the sports.
Yeah,
So
I
you can take
definitely
advantage.
I softened up on the topic after befriending a trans person. You know, like when I speak to them, like it's a girl. When I speak to him face to face, I call him he, and dude, what's up, bro? Like I'm not going to be rude to somebody. I'm not going to blatantly upset someone that I consider a friend. But if I'm going to speak publicly in the context of what is, it's a girl. She's a she, and I shouldn't be forced to acknowledge something that isn't real.
Yeah.
Right, exactly. They can't enforce that onto you, but that's what they're doing in these social media sites. You literally are basically being forced to use certain language, a certain viewpoint, and now people are getting banned, not just for these ideas, but for any ideas that are against the left. I mean, recently a big one was Paul Joseph Watson just got banned off Facebook and Instagram, and Alex Jones was banned off Instagram. And this to me is really strange because these people are not promoting hatred. They're not promoting all the things that they're saying they're promoting because I watch what they say.
It's just an alternative opinion.
It's just a different opinion about. It's actually basically pro-American people that vote for Trump, and it's like they have the leftists just hate the people that promote Trump because they want to get the Democrat election for the next presidential election. That's what I think is really happening. Is they're trying to prepare in advance before 2020 to get rid of all these people that helped get Trump elected off of the website so that people have to, because some people are like, oh, they're banned, now I don't know where to go find them. Well, you find them on their own websites.
And Infowars.
You can go to their websites, and that's why we're building our own website, because we have to. I mean, eventually, we will be targeted too. This is a big problem, and this is something that has to change. Otherwise, we're going to have some trouble in the upcoming elections if everyone that's importantly on the conservative viewpoint is being banned.
I was upset Trump Town folded. I don't know if you guys ever heard of Trump Town. Trump Town. I know. Lauren, my wife, who's off camera. Like Trump Town was a thing. It was like Facebook for people that got kicked off of Facebook. It was just for conservatives to go and openly talk about conservative policies that we like. And I don't know why it folded, but I heard it did. And I didn't really get on it a lot. So the only reason I use Facebook because I have so many family members and friends that it's good to see what they're doing here and there. You want to reach out, just check up on them. But I had no one on there, so I didn't really check it as often. But it was cool. They tried.
Well, and see, here's the problem with any of those smaller deals is it's exactly what you're talking about. They're a smaller platform, so you don't have the reach that Facebook does, and it's almost like Facebook is kind of like the main street now.
Yeah.
So where you could go talk to your neighbor or whatever. That's
Right.
what Facebook is now.
Right.
And where before, if you were to go talk to your neighbor, or somebody would, if the police were to come in and stop you from talking to your neighbor, there would be a huge problem with like free speech or whatever. But because Facebook's a corporation, Twitter's a corporation, they can kind of come in and be the police and stop you from exercising your free speech.
Right.
And it's a huge problem with the social media platforms, and they're actually beginning, and they're starting to get some of these like really left-leaning people too, so they can be like, oh, we're balanced. Like they got like Louis Farrakhan, which I guess he says a bunch of
he
like
should've been long
anti-Semitic,
gone,
like.
right, he's-
But and I don't want to say he should be long gone, because we don't, because
He still has free
it's the principle of having free speech. I don't like the guy, I don't like what he says, but I respect the principle of having free speech, because if I can't have it, or if I'm not being allowed to have it, I should definitely be
Yeah.
allowed to have it. I don't want somebody else getting
Right,
taken
yeah,
off.
you shouldn't ban him just for the,
Yeah,
the
'cause-
anti-Israel
That-
statements that he made. I don't
mean,
know a lot about him.
I think he should be out there, and then I would like people just to be going in there and saying you're an idiot. Like that's what I would rather that be the discourse rather than
right.
people getting banned.
I agree.
They also like banning people at the same time to make it look like they're all part of the same thing. Like, oh, he's anti-Semitic. Let's also ban these people on the right because they're also anti-Semitic. Like they try to group it to make this perception like, oh, they're trying to get rid of all the extreme people. But sometimes they just ban people just because they're not extreme at all. They're just people that believe in this country.
Alex Jones, I was so surprised when I'd first heard about it a while ago, because I know he got banned from Twitter, and I was like, really? I mean, he's got some out there conspiracy theories, for my taste, but I mean, the guy's he's not out there actively making threats, or he's not hating on anybody.
Plus, but we all like I agree with most of what he says, and it's like how can how can this patriot that literally it's really because he helped like Trump get elected and he was part of that movement. They really don't like him because he has like a lot of these ideas that they don't want him to talk about. He always focuses on what is like the most controversial thing. So they feel like they can get rid of him. But the thing is that they're trying to step in and take more and more people out, as you can see. Because it started off with him because they think they can get away with banning him because there's certain people that think he's really extreme, so they're okay with it. But then slowly they get more and more moderate people, and eventually they clean the house out, and all that's left is the most extreme radical left people that they want so that they can control elections. I mean, this is like the real election collusion that's really affecting elections, whereas they're totally focused on Russian Trump colluding with Russia because of WikiLeaks, and it's like that's ridiculous.
That's why I think no one's heard about what's going on in Venezuela, because they just kept pushing the Mueller probe and the Barr report, and everyone and their mother knew there was going to be nothing in there. And now that it's out, I read part of the Barr report when it came out the other week, and just really dry. They had some of Trump's tweets in there that were, kind of.
Oh yeah, I read a little clip. I scanned through that Mueller report,
Right.
and it's like they get a bunch of stories. They have 400 pages of just
448.
Yeah, 448 pages of like kind of like just noise, because it's like, oh, this person met with him and this person met with him, and what did you talk about and all this is like, what does this have to do with Trump getting elected by the American voters? Because that's literally what happened.
God, I hope Hillary runs again.
Oh, she can.
Old Hill
Oh,
dog.
she can't.
Hill dog.
She'd get
You're not. She can't go back for round 2 against Trump because it's just not going to go well. I don't
Dude,
think. Or it's going to be one of two things. It's either going to be, and I think that's going to be a big challenge with this election.
It's Trump Biden.
It's
It's
gonna-
Trump Bernie.
Well, but here's the thing. It's either going to be like really close again, but I think honestly, I'm really scared that it is going to go to the Democrats. I don't think Trump's. I don't think
You
I
said
don't-
you said we were losing 3 years ago.
I did.
Well, so did I.
Well,
I thought we were losing
dude,
too.
I was not ready for
I remember-
election night. I was not ready for it. I was like,
I remember talking to you. We were at Cowboy's house out in Cheryl's Ford,
Yeah.
and you were like, "Man, Hillary Clinton's going to be the president." And I was like, "God, that sucks." No, 'cause I didn't believe it. And
well, and like that night, I was like, "There's no way. There's no way." And like
he pulled it off.
pulled through, and I was like,
That's
"This
an
is
important-
this is
That's a really good point you bring up, because there's a problem with the way the mainstream media is also creating a perception for people,
Sure.
because there is, of course, a natural like concern that Democrats are going to have a good chance of winning. but they also they're good at marketing their stuff to the point where you make people feel like the support for the Democrats is so overwhelming.
They make
and
you
it's
believe
just so
it.
big. It's like, no, it's the exact opposite, dude. Most of the country is red. And like they take advantage of how they have control over a lot of channels and media and stuff to create this idea that the Democrats are huge and the Republicans are this fringe organization that no one knows about. It's like the total opposite in reality. That's why Trump won. And that's why, I mean, I have to disagree with you on this one. I think that Trump has a great chance of winning, but I'm not going to say it's impossible
No,
with the
yeah.
Democrats.
See, like for me, it's not that he's going to win by landslide.
Okay.
It's not. If he wins, it's going to be close.
Right. He'll edge it
It's
out.
going to be
Right.
very close,
That I agree
and
with.
and it won't.
So yeah, we were talking, Travis. You were talking about the media in changing people's interpretations of what's
Right.
going on.
Yeah, so the media constantly pushing out like kind of a left-leaning thing. It's what you run into with people is the things that stuff like Trump says, like maybe we should secure the border and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And the way that he says it, I guess, comes across as bad as people, but I think it's more that the media tells them that it's a bad thing.
Right.
So I've had discussions with people that are like Hispanic people that are like very against the wall. And then when I tell them basically the same like rhetoric or whatever that Trump says,
Right.
they go, oh, well, I mean, I know you're not a racist person because the media
Right.
obviously hasn't talked about me.
Right.
So they go, oh, well, I guess that's reasonable. I don't think you're saying
Yeah.
that for a hateful reason. So I think it's a lot of like the idea of like the Trump derangement syndrome.
That's
Because
so
Trump said
true.
it, it's bad. And that's something that you're going to have to deal with a lot too with this election is.
Right.
So like if you have a lot of conservative people out there talking, they're going to look at you because you're like on a main platform or whatever, they're going to put you in the category where your opinion doesn't mean anything because you're espousing
That's-
certain ideas.
That's so true, and it actually reminds me of what's going on in this country is that you have people that listen to the mainstream leftist media,
Right.
and so they're getting deeper and deeper into the delusion that they're spreading through there, like, oh, he's a racist, he's a sexist. Meanwhile, there's a group of people like us, a large group of people, that's like already been cut. We cut ourselves off from that. So now we're in a different world, essentially, because we have different news that we would look at, different perspective, and it's more like what Trump is actually saying versus what the leftists are getting fed, which is a total distortion of reality. Because obviously Trump's not racist, but there's still people that think, oh, he hates all Mexicans when he literally never said that ever. And so it's kind of like, that's so true that there's certain people that are getting deeper and deeper and deeper into that Trump derangement syndrome, whereas a lot of other people are the exact opposite. We're getting more and more awake to how much lying there is in the media, and that's definitely causing a big divide.
Yeah.
But, I think we need to get people to more realize that, look, the Trump supporters that are on the ground, the real Republicans, the nationalists in the ground are us. We're the ones locally that are actually doing this. And look, we're not racist. We don't, hate black people. We don't hate white people. I mean, the leftists are spreading a lot of hatred actually without even, maybe they don't even realize it, but they're really just, this whole white supremacist stuff that they're saying is going on in this country. That's not happening. Look at Ilhan Omar, that the senator, she's like, or the representative, she's like, saying how this country is not going to be a white country or something.
She's a congresswoman. Yeah, she's
Yeah.
an absolute embarrassment. The racist card is it's so ridiculous. I think right now our political parties are so polarized. They're just on completely opposite ends of the spectrum. And going forward, I do think it's going to be really, really difficult for just to see it from the other side of the aisle.
I want to acknowledge what they're saying still, so that we can kind of deconstruct their talking points. Because something that's really, really important nowadays that I want to get into is the topic of abortion. Because that's like one of the leftist main things nowadays. They're pushing all these bills like, oh, you're totally allowed to kill the baby after it's born, and they don't deserve any medical attention if they survive abortion. These are what they're passing in New York. Our own governor here, Roy Cooper, he vetoed a bill trying to protect babies from being killed after they survive abortions.
He won't be in office after next year.
No, that was a huge mistake on his part, because people are disgusted by that. I mean, I really want people to understand that people are disgusted by that, because this is human life we're talking about. This is you. Okay, this is what he thinks about you. Imagine if you're the baby, being aborted. Imagine if you were that person. I mean, that's what the Democrats are creating, is a world where life isn't that important. It's something that you can just get rid of at just the sense of inconvenience that you have to have a kid. I mean, I went and watched the movie Unplanned recently, and man, that was such a good movie, because, and I know my wife loved it too, because it really shows someone that was the head of a Planned Parenthood clinic that decided that she couldn't go along with aborting thousands and thousands and thousands of children that are now non-existent and that you never got to see, because they were literally selling abortions to people. It's not that they just want to help. It's like they literally made their business model is making money off these abortions. So if your business model is made from human extinction, that is an extremely dangerous entity on this planet, because their goal is to end your life. So if the Democrats are all part of that, because they support this movement, I believe that it's insane that people think that it's just a clump of cells or something. No, these are babies. They have rights. It's not the woman's right to simply control. They think it's controlling their own body. No, it's a different person that you're talking about. It's not your body. It's a different person. What do you think about that?
Well, the baby gets ripped to pieces in abortion. Abortion to me is the most heinous and evil thing I've ever seen legalized. I can't even fathom how it was ever voted into law. It's a really emotional subject. It's a really touchy subject. I know we got a win in Ohio a few months ago. They passed a heartbeat bill where the doctor will get criminally charged with a felony if he aborts a baby after a heartbeat's detected. And when we found out we were pregnant with our son, the heartbeat was detected at 7 weeks. But I'd like to see abortion completely banned across the country, or at least the start in the state of North Carolina. And the most important part of the politics for me, like going into next year, is getting Roy Cooper out of office. The abortion thing is really just over the line. Everyone wants to point their finger at special circumstances with rape and incest. Like, I'll be the first person to stand up if a woman is raped. But you can't point at special circumstances like rape and incest when they account for such a small percentage of abortions that happen. And if your father commits a heinous crime, they shouldn't kill you for it. I could agree. If anyone's convicted of rape, they should be castrated or killed. I wouldn't have an issue with that. As far as incest goes, I don't know enough about. I haven't heard anything about.
I think there's statistics, so for the sake, and I know it's a compromise that still isn't good enough, but I think a lot of, when you do this, if you want to ban abortion, then I think the big case that you get from the left is that they want to, what about rape and incest, right?
Exactly.
Now, I think for the sake of making a step in the right direction, maybe the argument then is, okay, fine, we'll keep those, allow those abortions. And something to keep in mind too, I think a lot of it is a disingenuous argument, because the moment that you say, okay, we'll allow it for that, now are you okay with banning every other abortion? They will still say no, they still think abortion should be legal. So it's you can't have an honest argument with the people. When
it has to be strict, because that's a big question that the left has is, what about abortion for rape and incest? Yes. Well, here's the problem, is that there's also women that will take advantage of the situation. Yes, there are women that get raped, yes. But there's also women that can fake that. They can pretend that they get raped. I mean, the left is so obedient to people claiming that they get raped that they could just take someone's word for it. And what if she's just doing it for her own convenience? And now there has to be a life that's sacrificed because someone lied about being raped. I mean, it's a slippery slope. I mean, that means that she, how can you tell when someone is or isn't? Or what if she had consent for it, but then she decided not to the next day? Then that can be the cause between someone living and dying, that baby living or dying. it's a tough subject, but hey, we need to talk about it. And look, I don't think it's right that someone has to be sacrificed, because there are stories of women that have been raped, and they have the children. They don't abort the children, and guess what? They're actually happy that child was born, because
they grow up to love that
because
child.
that child is a beautiful child still. It's still a beautiful person.
Yeah, my other comment was, to the mother, even, I couldn't possibly imagine like just the pain that a woman would go through experiencing that, but I don't think killing a child is ever
A solution.
yeah, it's not a solution to me. And like, the only thing I can say is that baby is still hers. That's still her baby. That has her genetics. That's still her son or her daughter. It's hard to talk about, but I would compromise and say for rape and incest, but I'm not okay with it. I'd vote against it, but if it got voted and if it got reversed and re-voted,
So say it's a step, right? So
Yeah,
it's a step.
exactly.
So let's say you get a bill that comes across that says we're going to ban abortion except for rape and incest, and maybe the case for rape is that they filed a police report, whether the charge, and they can't drop the charges. So if they drop the charges, then maybe there's some sort of prosecution or fine or something that comes after the
Yeah,
fact.
that's a good idea.
But so what you do, it's the right step, and there's lots of choices in this situation. I mean, and I know that, like, I've had several conversations about like birth control, and I get all women aren't the same, and certain medications affect different women different ways, but there's plenty of choices, enough to where that if you do have an unexpected pregnancy, that you got something you can do. You can adopt. I mean, and then the decision beforehand, birth control, and then one that everybody doesn't like is not having sex. But like, if you plan it right,
abstinence works.
Condoms work really well, in my opinion. Like, I think that the birth control is actually not as effective, because I've heard a lot of people getting pregnant with birth control because they don't use it right.
we miss a day or something like that.
Which is not as effective as a condom. So if people are afraid of having kids, use condoms. That's what I recommend. But the thing is, like, at the same time, talking about the baby getting aborted. I mean, we're talking about like kind of like a subject where there's good points that we're making, but we're also, remember, we're negotiating with people that think it's okay to abort a baby at any moment.
Yeah.
Like, it's just like, even if it's like,
well, and see, that's why this is a really tough conversation, because when you start out with this conversation, you can get to a point, and then when you get to the rape and incest point, you get them to agree that should, we say we agree with that, and then you go beyond that, they end up saying, well, I still don't think you have a right to say. And I mean, but
should we compromise? That's a good question. Should we compromise about this? Because if compromising allows that to continue, and this chasm to continue, maybe it's important to start to realize the rights that baby has to live. Because that person is a person. It's not something that is different. Because when you end that person's life, it's the same as ending someone that's grown up. It's still, that person is going to become an adult one day that has rights. So, I mean, they have rights already. In my view, they're humans.
Sure.
Yeah,
and I think it's you got to make steps in the right direction. It's not. It's kind of like the same idea when you talk about guns. It's not. You're not going to start the conversation at I want to own anything I want to own. And let's say like the idea, maybe the idea that we're talking about here can be compared to like world hunger. Let's say. Well, let's say you got some world hunger going on, right? Some people starving and dying, right? Well, is there a move that we could make that cuts down world hunger, but it doesn't get rid of it all? Is that step still the right step to take? And I mean, if you can get people to compromise or even bring back the line. So they move the line now, and then maybe move the line back in certain places. And there's always conversations about viability, and that line constantly moves around too. So it's like you got to figure out that.
That's a great point, because a lot of times in politics, no side is just going to get everything they want. It's always a balance, and we have to know how to progress through a society, make it a better place. But because it is important to make sure that we protect our freedoms and our rights and not get it infringed. But also at the same time, we can't expect to get everything we want at once. Because some people, that's the thing, is that I know some people that think that, because there's just one thing that's wrong with the government, that means that the whole government needs to be overthrown, as there's no hope left and it's all over. It's like, that's not how it works. You have to be involved. We have to be part of the system. Otherwise, all the people that are involved are the ones that are getting things done. Whereas all the people saying that they wish that the world was different, but they just sit at home and criticize the world all day, they're not really getting anything done. That's why it's so important that we have to vote, especially to get the Democrats out of office in our local area, because if they're going to continue to support, killing babies, which I forgot to mention, one of the most important points here, multi-millions, it's a holocaust in itself of how many babies are being killed per year.
It was a leading cause of death in the United States.
Leading cause of death in the world, and when we look at the world, it's something like 50 to 60 million estimated murders. There's not an exact number, but it's in that range. It's about 50 to 60 million babies that are not existing every year because of the abortions that are happening. And so this can't continue. I mean, this is ridiculous.
I can't justify killing a child by any stretch of the imagination. I sit and I think about it all the time. Even with the compromise, if I would rather have it that way or no way, I would rather the compromise with rape and incest. But I still.
But see, the rape and incest, at least in this country, gets rid of 90-something
saves
percent.
lives. Yes,
so it's
saves
such
lives.
a huge step in the right direction.
Yes.
But and see, this is another challenge too, is that you're going to have to. You have to figure out how to talk somebody into seeing that clump of cells is not just a clump of cells, it's a life. And that's probably the hardest bridged gap. And see, the idea of viability, so like a baby born in New York City where the technology is best, and this is an idea that I've heard on some other shows, it's this baby in New York, is that life more valuable than, let's say, a baby born in the backwoods of Virginia or Kentucky, where they don't have the same access to the best, like premature baby, like medicine or whatever? Is that baby born in West Virginia worth less than the baby born in New York? I don't think so. But I mean, so you have to figure out where that line is and get them to move on that line. And it's a really tough point.
area. You mentioned the clump of cells thing. It's important for people to understand what it's like when it's your life that's involved with this, because sometimes people can look at situations like from a distance, but that clump of cells was you. Okay, you were that clump of cells. You could have not existed because of Democrat policies. I mean, they're allowing people to. What if your parents decided you didn't exist? What about all the joys that you're taking away from that child that was going to live?
Even at 8 weeks, though, it looks like a person.
And see, here's the thing too. It's easy to say these things when you're outside the womb.
Right,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
it's very easy.
Ronald Reagan said, "It's funny that everyone that's for abortion has already been born."
Yeah, it's.
I remember when we were looking at our son on the ultrasound. Even at 8 weeks, like, he had a head, he had arms, he had legs. The Democratic Party. I mean, God Almighty. The party that claims science, claims life, like, if you found what resembled an 8-week-old fetus on Mars, it would be deemed the greatest scientific discovery of our time.
A cell of bacteria.
Yeah, but
like
here it's like,
single...
it's this fetus, it's a clump of cells, it's worth nothing, I can just kill it whenever I want to. These clinics, they pull these babies apart. The babies are fighting back in the womb. They're trying to
watch an abortion video.
Yeah, and see, here's something to think about too. And this is a challenging thing too. And then it comes back to that idea of, like, how do you convince them? Because, like, there's definitely like a sentiment that I see with people that do lean left. It's like the idea that the world would be a better place if we weren't here as humanity. And and so there's this. That idea that
they think we're like a virus,
that we're a virus, we're a plague. I mean, and the idea, and the way that I see abortion is almost an extension of that idea.
Yes, that's true.
So,
that's true.
And I don't want. There's probably women out there that actually may have I don't even.
Well,
it's a tough situation.
What I can say is, like, yes, I mean, you're right. It does come from that idea, because they don't value life the same way. The leftists don't value life the same way, because if they did, they would have a problem with aborting. They don't. So if they don't have a problem with aborting people whenever you feel like it, well, then that means they really don't care about life itself. And they think, a lot of them think that, I could be wrong. There's some of them don't think this, but there's definitely a large portion that think, the world is totally overpopulated. We're the ones destroying the world. The world's going to end in 12 years because AOC said so. And same with Beto, even though he's losing and stuff. But like that's what they think. I mean, this is like a total propaganda to try to depopulate the planet, because that's essentially, somebody's pushing this idea. Somebody is conscious of what this is going to cause if people act on this idea. So this is very important, because this is a blasphemy towards God's creation, which is human beings. And to think that it's worth nothing is ridiculous, because that's another subject people don't talk about sometimes, is the spiritual aspect of what it feels like when you end a baby's life yourself. If it's your baby and you ended it, you're going to think about that for the rest of your life.
Well, so that brings my next statement, my next question. If abortions were banned and a woman was caught soliciting for or having an abortion done, I don't believe the woman should be charged. I think the doctor should be charged, because I don't want to say that people have been brainwashed, but the doctor knows what they're doing. Like, people have this preconceived notion that it's not murder, and it is. So if abortion was banned and a woman was caught getting an abortion on the black market, I would rather see the doctor prosecuted than the mother.
Well, is there not, at that point, then you got to ask the question, is there, and see, this is, I think, at least for the discussions that you want to have that will be productive now, that's a road that you don't want to go down, because then if you're going to talk about like a legal standard, kind of like if you and I were to plan to kill somebody, right, and you did the act, but I helped you, or I was a part of the act, then I would be charged as well to some extent. Maybe a lesser crime because I didn't actually do it.
If you give
right?
consent,
sure.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, and see, but these things, it's not a productive conversation to have, because you're not going to win any friends with that conversation, right? So it's true that maybe the doctor should be charged.
Laura
I feel like the woman should be partially charged because she went out of her way to go into the black market.
Right. Yeah, I guess.
Yeah,
So, like,
she's doing something
do
illegal.
that.
I mean, the thing is, you're right. There are some people that are so brainwashed, they don't even think they're doing something wrong. But if we don't punish people, then there's going to be more people that take advantage, and they think that it's okay, and it becomes a slippery slope.
I'd like to see how this conversation actually goes with a leftist, because I mean they're really hard to talk to. In the future, we do plan on having liberals on the show. They will be mandated to wear a tinfoil hat throughout the entire recording. But I mean, I'm just kidding. Well, not really. But
We want to talk about it.
And that's kind of why I'm trying to play a little bit of devil's advocate to some extent, or
right.
at least saying, because you're not going to, like, the idea with these discussions, especially with abortion, is to win friends, right, to your side. So the conversations about, like, do we charge the mother because she had her baby aborted? These are conversations, like, and see, like, you could have ideas like if a woman gets an abortion, you say they get abortion once, right? Maybe you say, okay, you get one once, okay, fine, you made a mistake. You get one twice, you're gonna start talking about maybe
That could be a good.
like it's like if your idea about if somebody rapes somebody, right, that they should be killed or castrated. Well, castrating is like.
Well, I would say
so.
I don't agree with that, but
well, I mean, it's again, it's just a thought process. So like you go, it's something that you could like almost like a 3-strike system or something like that, to where like. And again, it's like an idea of a compromise. So there's steps that.
how do you have this conversation with a leftist without coming off insulting?
Well, and again, that's the whole challenge with this conversation. It's not a conversation that's easy, because there's some fundamental differences with the ideologies that you're going to have to overcome, and it's a very tough question of how you do that.
Ethan, how are we going to be able to get a leftist to sit here for more than 2 minutes? That's another one too. I mean, if they can stand the conversation, that's already an accomplishment. I think.
I wouldn't be insulting in debate. I'd just like to have open discussion.
Yeah, open discussion is very important. I'm sure we'll find some people that are wanting to discuss with us a totally opposite view.
Leave a comment below.
And yeah, I mean, we're definitely. I mean, I'm so glad that we're talking about it though, because it's so important. And people are just honestly happier if they have the kid. Let's just face it, it's pretty simple. Like, if you have the kid, you're going to be happier than to have to kill the kid. You have to go through the physical pain of actually aborting the child. That's something I learned in that Unplanned movie. it's not so simple. You don't just go and just abort a kid. Like, you take like dangerous chemicals into your body, or you have to go through pain and bleeding, and it's just disgusting.
Well, and see, here's the scary part about all this too. So the abortions, the legal standards for like the care that is given to a woman is lowered, or there's pushes to make that standard lower. So before, years ago, it was like safe, legal, and rare. So now they're trying to do it on demand with less stringent medical laws, so women can get sick and die, or get like you almost want these procedures done in a hospital to some extent. But if you move it to a clinic where they may not have the equipment, if they mess something up,
Right.
if they grab the wrong thing, maybe cause some internal bleeding, something that
Right,
could
right.
really cause damage to the mother, they may not be equipped to handle it. And the left is moving the line away from like actual healthcare centers
Right, exactly.
into more like mom and pop shops, let's say.
That's so true, because that we watched that in that movie. It was explaining that how that happens. It's because, and also here's another thing, is that the Planned Parenthood clinics, it's a conflict of interest for them, because if something, for example, if they make a mistake, they almost don't want to take the person to a hospital, because then that can be recorded by a journalist that's saying, hey, look, this clinic is friggin' messing up and causing health issues, and then so they don't even want to put that person in a safe position, because they want to cover it up, make sure they try to make them live. And that's like a big problem. That's a huge problem. And all this is because people just want to kill kids. Like, we just have to stop killing kids and have kids. The kids are beautiful.
Well, it's the inconvenience. They don't want the inconvenience. I think the policymakers are more the ones that you have to worry about the idea that there's some evil agenda or something like that. And I don't even want to say that there is or isn't, but those are the people that you have to be. I'm less concerned about the individual that goes in, but and there is a lot of moral questions that go along with it, and I think I think in a lot of these clinics, there's not the conversation of what if you do keep the kid.
I don't like the rhetoric.
Yeah,
push
they
for it.
don't, because they make money off the abortion.
I don't like the rhetoric that's pushed that having a child, starting a family, getting married, having children. I don't like the rhetoric that's pushed that says that that's inconvenient.
That's exactly
That
right.
I don't
No,
like
yeah.
that should be the best part of your life. Like to
Exactly.
me, it felt almost like biological drive.
Yes.
Yeah.
It is.
Well,
It
and
is.
see, like, I don't have. You'll get to experience this sooner than I will, but I know when I'm taking care of my nieces or nephews, when I buy them a meal, there's something that's very rewarding about that.
Gratifying. Very gratifying.
It's a strange experience, and and I know it's going to be like 100-fold for you, because it's actually going to be your kid that you're caring for.
I'm so glad you brought this up, because this is what I was thinking just now as you guys were talking. It's a total deception, that this idea that if you have a kid, your life is ruined. That is a lie. There's so much pleasure in raising a kid. I'm sure you're going to experience a lot of pleasure in raising your child. Like, look, this idea that your life is ruined, no, your life is that's part of your life. That's part of growth. That's part of being a man or a woman. And that's how our ancestors have done it for so long. It's kind of looked like this anti-human agenda that all of a sudden it's weird to have a kid. All of a sudden it's bad to have a kid. This is totally anti-human. This is not the way we've lived our lives for hundreds of thousands of years, maybe millions. It's just like, it's crazy.
I think a good place to start is to change the way we talk about it. Because to me, like, my son's already here. He'll be born in July, but I met him months ago. He's just in my wife's belly. I think it could start with changing the way that we talk about it.
Exactly.
Like, she was a mother and I was a father the day that we found out we were pregnant.
Absolutely.
It's not.
Absolutely.
Even my mom just the other day said mother to be, and in my mind I was like, well, no, like we're parents already. We're already caring for her.
To some extent, you're already. You're feeding the kid as you speak. It's part of. You're already doing some of the work, right?
Yeah.
So it's.
Yeah. The difference is that he's inside the womb and he's not outside.
Yeah.
And it's just.
Yeah, even with the marriage thing though, I feel like they demonize marriage. They demonize traditional family values, and there's three things that you have complete control of that can vastly steer your life in the right direction. You can graduate high school, don't have children until you get married, and I can't remember the third one.
But I mean, like believing in God is important too. But like, I think a lot of things that's going on right now is I noticed that there's a connection between these ideas from the left. Why is it that the less ideas seem to result in death a lot? Have you noticed that? You have abortion; it results in death. You have the feminist movement, which is like hating men and not getting married. Okay, so you don't have kids, so there's less people. It's just related to this whole not producing, dying off, cutting your genitals off. Now you can't produce kids. It's like, why is it all about this dying and death? And I want to be a person promoting life and goodness and happiness. What's with this whole leftist obsession with death?
Death culture. Yeah, I even think the suicide rate in the transgender community is like 46%.
Yeah,
it's egregious. Like, I think these people need like psychiatric help, and I don't know where to begin.
It's the media. I mean, we're part of the media now. We're going to promote the right ideas that promote life, because I don't want to continue to see people suffering, and because a lot of these. All right, so we're going to wrap this second show up here, where we're talking about abortion, and I think it's something that's really also a spiritual thing as well as a physical thing, and there's some good points that the ladies were making over here, that there's also damage that's done to your body when you get an abortion. There's a possibility that you can't have a kid afterwards, and that's a great point, because that's like, well, if you can't have a kid, what if you do want to have a kid? I mean, you're also risking your own potential to reproduce, and that's a terrible, terrible thing. So I want to make sure that all this knowledge is put out there, because there are leftists out there that are like really considering abortions right now. And young people out there, and it's like, no, don't do it. They're beautiful. Kids are beautiful. You're gonna find a way to handle it. There's not if the worst case scenario is you have to put them up for adoption. The worst case scenario shouldn't be killing the baby. That's unnecessary. It's not necessary.
A child is a blessing and a gift.
Absolutely. So, any final thoughts from you guys?
No, it was fun.
I enjoyed it. I'm happy you came.
Yeah,
our other party bailed, and you were. I reached out last minute expecting you to be busy, and then when you're like, "I'm coming, I'm on the way," I was like, "Great."
Yeah, anytime, man. I enjoy talking stuff like this. It's I like it's kind of like playing chess. Like, I like the mental gymnastics.
I'm still up
Yes.
for that.
Okay, yeah. So we're gonna play some chess after this, so that's gonna be good.
Yeah, I might join in sometimes. Yeah, so appreciate you watching. We have a lot more discussions ahead. The third podcast is going to be coming up next week, and also, so we're just going to continue doing this, and we're going to have more discussions. So thanks for tuning in to the Patriot Torch today, and we'll see you next time.